Sun Tzu discusses the art of war. Chapter 1. The art of war is vital for the state. It's a matter of life and death, offering a path to safety or leading to ruin. This is a topic that cannot be overlooked. The art of war is influenced by 5 constant factors that should be considered when assessing the conditions in the field. The moral law stands as one of these factors. Next is the earth, the commander. Discipline, and method. Due to the moral law, the people will follow their leader, valuing their lives. Heaven encompasses night and day, cold and heat. Earth consists of both great and small distances. There exists a balance between danger and security. The terrain and passageways are either open or closed. Opportunities for life and death arise. Commander must possess virtues of wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. Understanding the proper organization of the army, the hierarchy of ranks, maintaining supply routes, and managing military expenses all stem from method and discipline. Every general should be well acquainted with these 5 factors. They know their strategies won't let them down. To assess military conditions, use these factors as your foundation for comparison. Which general has the greatest skill? Who benefits the most from heaven and earth? Which side demonstrates the strongest discipline? Which army showcases greater strength? Where are the officers more effectively trained? Which army maintains greater consistency in reward and punishment? Victory or defeat can be anticipated through these 7 considerations. Let the general who heeds my advice and acts on it remain in command. Dismiss the general who ignores my counsel or fails to act upon it. You can make the most of any advantageous circumstances beyond the usual rules if you take my advice seriously. Adapt your plans as conditions change. War relies on deception. We must appear weak when we are strong enough to attack. We must act as if we are inactive while moving our forces. We need to lead the enemy to believe we are far away. Meanwhile, let them think we are actually close. To lure the enemy, offer enticing baits. If faced with disorder, crush the opposition. Stay prepared if they seem secure at all times. If the enemy is strong, avoid confrontation. Seek to provoke them if they have a fiery temperament. They may become arrogant if you feign weakness. Don't give them any rest if they are taking their time. If their forces are united, aim to divide them. Strike where the enemy is unprepared. Victory strategies should remain confidential. The general who prevails in battle makes numerous calculations beforehand. Conversely, the general who suffers defeat often neglects this. Countless calculations lead to victory, while a lack of them results in defeat. By focusing on this aspect, one can ascertain who is more likely to win or lose. Chapter 2. Raising an army requires 100,000 men. If victory takes too long, their weapons will become dull, and their enthusiasm will wane. Laying siege to a town will wear you out, and if a campaign drags on, the resources of the state won't hold up under the pressure. Once your weapons are dulled, your zeal diminished, your strength depleted, and your treasures exhausted, rival leaders will seize the opportunity to take advantage of your weakness. No one can escape the consequences of prolonged conflict. Cunning is rarely associated with extended delays. History shows that no nation benefits from unnecessary warfare. A true understanding of war's many miseries is essential for effectively managing it. A soldier doesn't burden his supply wagons more than needed. It's better to bring supplies from home to ensure the army stays fed. Relying on contributions from far away puts a strain on the local populace. The presence of an army in the area drives up prices, draining the people's resources. The peasantry suffers heavily when their wealth is stripped away, facing harsh demands. Families will find their homes bare, and nearly a third of their incomes will be lost due to this drain on their resources and energy. Government expenses for damaged chariots, tired horses and protective gear can amount to nearly 40% of total revenue. General highlights the importance of understanding the enemy. One cartload of enemy provisions is worth 20 of your own, and a single pekal, a unit of measurement, of their food is equivalent to 20 from your stores. Our troops must be fired up to confront the enemy. They need incentives to gain an edge. When 10 or more enemy chariots are captured, those responsible for the first takedown should receive rewards. Replace the enemy's flags with your own and integrate their chariots into your ranks. Treat any captured soldiers with respect. They could strengthen your own forces. Keep your focus on achieving victory rather than dragging out campaigns. Ultimately, the one who leads the armies determines whether the nation thrives in peace or is vulnerable to danger. Chapter 3. The most effective strategy in war is to take the enemy's territory intact. Destruction is not as beneficial. Capturing an entire army is preferable to annihilating it. True excellence in warfare isn't always about fighting and winning every battle. Often, it lies in breaking the enemy's will without engaging in combat. The highest skill in leadership involves undermining the enemy's plans. Preventing the enemy's forces from joining is almost as crucial as direct confrontation. When it comes to engaging the enemy's army, that should be prioritized. However, besieging fortified cities is usually a poor choice and should be avoided whenever possible. Preparing various war tools typically takes about 3 months, just as it requires the time to build mounds against city walls. Attacking can result in significant losses. It's common for 1/3 of the troops to be lost in such assault. The consequences of a siege can be devastating. Wise leader can subdue forces without fighting outright, capturing cities and overthrowing kingdoms with minimal field operations. By avoiding casualties, they can effectively challenge the empire's dominance. This is the approach to take if our forces are 10 times larger than the enemy's. Surrounding them is ideal. If we have 5 times their number, we should attack. Dividing our forces into 2 can be effective, while we can engage the enemy confidently when we're evenly matched. If we are outnumbered, retreating is a viable option. A small force can engage stubbornly, but ultimately larger forces will prevail. The strength of a state hinges on the integrity of its defenses. If the defenses are solid, the state thrives. If they falter, the state weakens. A ruler can bring disaster upon their army in 3 ways. First, by commanding advances or retreats without understanding the army's limitations. Second, by making similar orders that lead to confusion, which is often termed as hamstringing the military. Any rulers try to command armies as they would their kingdoms. However, soldiers are often restless. A good leader, aware of the military principle of adapting to circumstances, effectively employs their officers, knowing that soldier confidence is crucial. Stirring unrest invites trouble from rival factions, which can lead to chaos within the army, a sure road to defeat. A leader will succeed by knowing when to engage or withdraw, how to manage both stronger and weaker forces, and by ensuring unified spirit in the troops. Waiting to strike when the enemy is unprepared can also be advantageous. Success relies on understanding these 5 principles. If you know both your enemy and yourself, you need not fear 100 battles. If you have self-awareness but lack knowledge of the enemy, you may suffer defeat. But if you are oblivious to both, every encounter will lead to your downfall. Chapter 4. Sun Tzu stated, "The wise fighters of the past first ensured their own safety against defeat before waiting for the chance to overcome the enemy. This chance to defeat the enemy often arises from the enemy's own actions. So it's essential to safeguard ourselves from being defeated. A skilled fighter can protect themselves against failure, yet there's no guarantee of defeating the opponent. While one may understand how to achieve victory, this doesn't always translate into the ability to do so. Ensuring security against defeat involves employing defensive strategies. Taking the offensive means actively pursuing the enemy. When solely on the defensive, strength is often lacking. A true general who excels at defense remains hidden, while one adept at offense strikes decisively from above. On one hand, we have the means to protect ourselves. On the other, the possibility of a complete victory. It's unwise to recognize victory only when it's apparent to the masses. Just because one can lift a handful of autumn leaves doesn't indicate genuine strength. Likewise, merely seeing the sun and moon doesn't indicate exceptional vision, nor does hearing the rumble of thunder demonstrate keen hearing. The ancients regarded a clever fighter as one who wins effortlessly. Such a fighter may not gain a reputation for wisdom or bravery due to their victories. Instead, they succeed by avoiding mistake. The true conquest comes from defeating an already weakened enemy, which solidifies the assurance of victory. The fighter positions themselves in a way that renders defeat impossible and seizes the moment to claim victory over the enemy. The strategist destined to win focuses on securing outcomes before seeking battle, while the one fated to lose searches only for immediate triumph. The capable leader adheres strictly to method and discipline and wields the power to steer success. Measurement plays a pivotal role in military strategy, encompassing aspects such as estimation of quantity and careful calculation. Balancing chances is vital. It's victory that results from correctly assessing these chances. In a scale, a pound outweighs a single grain, suggesting the strength of a victorious army. The force of rushing water into a chasm mirrors the advance of a conquering army. Yet strategic planning should not be overlooked. Chapter 5. Sun Tzu remarked that managing a large army relies on the same principles as leading a small group. However, engaging in battle with a vast force differs significantly from handling a smaller contingent. Both direct and indirect tactics are essential to keep your entire force steady in the face of conflict. Understanding your strengths and weaknesses influences your army's effectiveness. While direct methods can be employed to initiate combat, winning often requires the use of indirect strategies. Much like the flow of rivers, these indirect tactics are boundless, reflecting the cycles of heaven and earth. They may conclude momentarily, only to begin anew, akin to the continuity of the sun and moon. Similar to how the 5 musical notes create countless melodies, the 5 primary colors, blue, yellow, red, white, and black, can be combined to produce an array of hues. Even though there are only 5 basic tastes, their combinations yield a plethora of flavors that can never all be tasted. In battle, there are fundamentally 2 methods of attack. These methods give rise to endless tactical maneuvers, flowing into one another like a circle with no end. Who can truly explore all the possibilities of these combinations? The movement of troops resembles a torrent, relentlessly following its course. Decisive leader is like a falcon swooping down on its prey, poised to strike and eliminate the target. A skilled fighter will be formidable right from the outset and in their choices. The tension of a drawn crossbow mirrors the power of energy ready to unleash. Though a battle may seem chaotic, it can still hold an underlying order. Your formation might appear disorganized at first glance, yet it can be fortified against defeat. Simulated chaos can mask true discipline, just as the appearance of fear can be born from courage. Strength can be cleverly concealed as weakness, and order can be hidden within apparent disorder. By maintaining an air of unpredictability, a tactician can keep the enemy constantly on the move, playing into their plans. The enemy might seize opportunities, but with strategic bait, they can be led into a trap. A clever combatant doesn't need an overwhelming number of soldiers to effectively wield combined energy. They select their warriors wisely. With the right approach, those fighting under a skilled leader become as effortless as logs or stones, harnessing that combined momentum. On flat ground, a log or stone remains still, but when it's on a slope, it rolls with ease. When cornered, a stone might halt, yet a round shape rolls downhill naturally. The energy generated by proficient fighters resembles that of a round stone cascading down a mountain. There's much to say about the concept of energy in battle. Chapter 6. Sun Tzu emphasizes that the first to arrive on the battlefield will be fresh and ready for the fight, while the second will show up exhausted. An astute combatant does not let the enemy dictate terms. Instead, he offers enticing advantages, drawing the enemy closer on his own terms or denying them access. An enemy might try to harass a slow-moving force or starve a well-supplied one. If a commander sets up camp quietly, he can compel the enemy to move. The opponent will need to defend specific points and should quickly advance to unexpected locations. When an army is unopposed in the field, it can make significant strides. To ensure success, one should only attack undefended positions and occupy only those strongholds that cannot be easily breached. A skilled general creates confusion in his opponent, who will flounder without a plan. The art lies in subtlety and secrecy. By mastering invisibility, we can hold the enemy's fate in our hands. By identifying the enemy's weak points, we can make irresistible advances. If our movements outpace theirs, we can retreat safely from pursuit. Even when the enemy is sheltered behind high walls and deep ditches, they can still be compelled to engage if we choose to fight. Attacking elsewhere will force them to divide their forces. To avoid engagement, we can cast unexpected obstacles in their path. If we discover the enemy's dispositions while remaining unseen ourselves, we can keep our forces concentrated. The enemy must split into smaller groups to maintain unity. We will outnumber them by pitting a whole against parts. If circumstances allow us to confront an inferior force with a superior one, our opponents will be in dire straits. We must keep our intended fighting spot confidential, forcing the enemy to prepare for various scenarios. Their numerical strength will dwindle as they spread their forces thin. If the enemy bolsters one flank, they weaken another. Reinforcements sent everywhere will only diminish overall strength. The need to prepare against potential attacks creates this numerical disadvantage. Our adversary has had to brace for such challenges against us. Understanding the timing and location of a battle allows us to fight from vast distances. If those factors are uncertain, units on the left and right become isolated, unable to support one another, and the front cannot assist the rear, nor vice versa. If the components of an army are spread too far apart, the situation worsens. The soldiers of VIII lack an advantage when it comes to ensuring victory. Success can be claimed based on strategy alone. We have the power to prevent the enemy from engaging us by uncovering their plans and assessing their likelihood of success. By identifying their weak spots, we can force them to reveal themselves. To gauge strength and weakness, compare your forces with the enemy's. When making tactical decisions, the ideal strategy is to keep them hidden. If your dispositions remain concealed, you will evade the spies. The masses often cannot grasp how victory is shaped by the enemy's own tactics. The strategy behind victory is rarely visible to the troops. If you want your methods to adapt, avoid repeating the tactics that previously secured victory. Military tactics resemble water. They naturally flow away from high ground. In warfare, the key is to avoid the strong and strike at the weak, just like water molds itself to the terrain. A soldier finds his path to victory against an opponent. Warfare is ever-changing. As water does not hold a constant shape, a leader who can adapt tactics to achieve victory may well be regarded as a gifted commander. Each element, water, fire, wood, metal, and earth, plays its role, just as the seasons have their unique transitions, and the moon goes through its cycles of waxing and waning. Chapter 7. As Sun Tzu asserts that a general receives directives in war and must skillfully blend and harmonize various elements before establishing camp. Once this is done, however, the real challenges arise. Tactical maneuvering involves transforming the complex into the straightforward and turning misfortune into opportunity. Achieving objectives swiftly, while cleverly outmaneuvering the enemy, demonstrates an understanding of strategy. Maneuvering with an army can yield significant benefits, but doing so with a disorganized group can be perilous. If you set a fully equipped army on the march, chances are you will be too late. Detaching a flying column means sacrificing baggage and supplies, and often only a fraction, perhaps 1/10 of your army reaches its destination, as the stronger soldiers are often at the front. If you march 50 li, you might lose your 1st Division leader, and only half your forces may arrive at the goal. However, if you keep your objectives aligned, up to 2/3 of your army may make it. An army without its supply lines is destined for defeat, and without provisions, it stands no chance. We cannot forge alliances until we understand the intentions of our neighbors. Commanding an army requires knowledge of the local terrain, its mountains, forests, pitfalls, and swamps. Using local guides is essential for navigating these natural advantages. Success in war hinges on the practice of dissimulation, but only when there's an advantage to be gained. You must decide whether to concentrate your forces or divide them. Strike swiftly like the wind, and when the time comes to raid, approach it like a thunderbolt, especially when your plans remain obscured. As you seize territory, share the spoils among your men and portion them wisely for their benefit. Before making any move, take the time to ponder and deliberate. Those who master the art of deviation will conquer. The wisdom of employing gongs and drums for military management is well noted, as are the necessary flags and banners, since ordinary objects might not be clearly visible. The focus of the army may often be concentrated on a single point. Can the brave advance alone, or can the coward retreat on his own? Managing large groups requires finesse. In night battles, use signal fires and drums, while during the day, rely on flags and banners to guide the eyes and ears of your troops. Yet even a spirited army can lose its momentum, and a commander could lose their composure. Soldiers' energy is typically at its peak in the morning, starts to wane by noon, and shifts focus to returning to camp by evening. A clever general avoids engaging when the enemy's spirit is high, but strikes when they appear sluggish and weary. This is the key to understanding moods in battle. Maintaining composure is crucial. Wait patiently for disorder and confusion to arise within the enemy ranks. The skill of conserving one's strength lies in keeping close to your own objectives while the enemy struggles far from theirs. Remaining well-fed while they grow hungry. It's wise to refrain from engaging an army that seems calm and confident, as understanding the circumstances is important. It's a military principle not to attack uphill against an enemy or to confront them when they're descending. Avoid chasing enemies pretending to retreat, and steer clear of attacking troops that are angered. Don't take the bait when the enemy lays a trap. Always allow a retreat route when surrounding an army. There's wisdom in not pressing too hard. This embodies the essence of warfare. Chapter 8. Sun Tzu emphasized that in warfare, a general must gather his forces and focus their strength. Avoid setting up camp in challenging terrain. When main roads converge, it's wise to unite with allies. Steer clear of precarious, isolated spots. In tight situations, cunning strategies become essential. Sometimes you have to fight even when the odds are against you. There are paths that shouldn't be taken, armies that cannot be attacked, towns that can't be besieged, and positions that are impossible to hold. General who grasps the benefits of different tactics knows how to effectively manage his troops. Conversely, one who lacks this understanding will struggle to apply his knowledge in real scenarios. A student of warfare who fails to adapt his strategies is bound to squander the potential of his men. The wise leader's plans will blend both advantages and disadvantages. By lowering our expectations of advantage, we might still achieve the core of our objectives. If we remain alert to seize opportunities, we can often find our way out of trouble. Disarming our opponents involves undermining their strength. By creating distractions, we can keep them occupied and force them to rush towards superficial rewards. The art of war teaches us to rely not on the enemy's inaction, but on our own preparedness to face them. It's not about hoping they won't attack, but ensuring our position is impregnable. There are 5 significant flaws that can hinder a general's success. Cowardice may lead to capture. A quick temper can be easily triggered by insults. An overly sensitive sense of honor can be detrimental. While a sense of honor isn't a flaw, being overly sensitive to criticism is what Sun Tzu condemns. The missteps of a general can be disastrous for a military campaign. When an army falls and its leader is defeated, the root of the problem is revealed. These points can serve as valuable lessons for reflection. Chapter 9. Chapter 9. Sun Tzu inquired about the strategies for encamping the army and observing enemy movements. When traversing mountains, stay near valleys for a faster passage. Position yourself in elevated areas and face the sun. Climbing soldiers should refrain from engaging in combat. Mountain warfare is not their forte. After crossing a river, make sure to distance yourself from its banks. When an opposing force crosses a river, it's unwise to confront them in the middle. Allowing half your army to cross would position you for a more effective attack. Avoid meeting the invader near the river if battle is your intent. To face the sun effectively, anchor your vessels higher up than the adversary. Don't move upstream to engage the enemy. River warfare typically presents challenges. In crossing salt marshes, your main focus should be on getting through as swiftly as possible. Should you find yourself in a fight amidst salt marshes, ensure you have access to water and grass nearby, and make your way toward a cluster of trees. This terrain isn't particularly suited for military actions. In flat, dry regions, seek positions that are easy to access, with elevated ground to your right and behind you, mitigating potential dangers. The Yellow Emperor's victories were supported by 4 key branches of military knowledge. Armies tend to prefer high ground over low and sunny areas over dark. To safeguard your soldiers from illness, camp on firm ground and treat your men well. Occupy the sunny slope on the right side of the riverbank to maximize advantages. When considering a river you need to cross and it's swollen from heavy rains, be patient. Waiting is essential. Draw the enemy into advantageous territories and allow them to carry the terrain on their backs. Near your camp there should be hilly areas, ponds bordered by aquatic plants, hollow basins filled with reeds, and woods with thick underbrush, all potential spots for ambush. A stationary enemy relies on their advantageous position when they remain quiet. They seek to provoke a battle when encouraging the other side to advance. If the location is easily accessible, it's likely a trap. Watch for signs of enemy movements. Startled birds indicate an ambush, while dust clouds rising high signal chariot movement. A low dust spread suggests advancing infantry, and if dust spreads out in different directions, it indicates parties gathering firewood. Small dust clouds signify an army encampment, and there may be impending enemy advances. If the enemy retreats while speaking aggressively, it shows their intention to attack. When light chariots come out first, it signals the enemy is preparing for battle. Peace proposals often precede a sworn pact, indicating a critical moment when troops gather. If some soldiers are moving while others are not, it's a lure. If soldiers lean on their spears, they're not starving. However, if water fetchers start drinking the water they're gathering, thirst is an issue. Exhaustion reveals itself when the enemy is not seeking an advantage. Birds tend to gather in unoccupied spaces. Nighttime commotion suggests nervousness. If there's turmoil in the camp, the general's authority is waning. A shift in banners or flags may indicate dissent. Officers' anger hints at soldier fatigue. When troops feed horses grain, slaughter cattle for sustenance, and neglect to hang cooking pots over campfires, it's a clear indication they're ready to fight to the end. Whispers among small groups or low chatter point to discontent in the ranks. If the enemy frequently offers rewards, it suggests they are running low on resources. An overabundance of punishments often reflects a state of distress. Displaying fear in response to the enemy's numbers indicates a lack of insight. When envoys arrive with flattering words, it often means the enemy desires a truce. If the enemy advances angrily and remains in place for an extended period without engaging, caution and vigilance are crucial. Our forces don't need to outnumber the enemy to succeed, but a direct attack isn't advisable. Instead, we should closely monitor the enemy while consolidating our strength and preparing reinforcements. Underestimating opponents can lead to capture. Punishing soldiers before they align with your command will breed resentment. To build loyalty, soldiers must first be treated with kindness. This approach is the pathway to victory. Chapter 10. Sun Tzu said, "We can identify 6 types of terrain. 1. Accessible ground. The ground can be sloped or elevated. The passes may be narrow, and the heights can be daunting. There can also be a significant distance separating you from the enemy. The ground that both sides can reach is termed accessible. Prepare for the enemy to take control of elevated and sunlit areas, while safeguarding your supply lines. This will allow you to leverage your advantages. Retaking abandoned ground proves to be quite challenging. If the enemy is unprepared, you can strike and defeat them. However, disaster awaits if they are ready and you fail to conquer them first. When the situation means neither side will gain from making the first move, it's known as temporizing ground. Even if the enemy offers a tempting opportunity, it's wiser to retreat and draw them out. We should launch our attack to our advantage when part of their forces advances. If you can seize the narrow passes ahead of time, ensure they are garrisoned and wait for the enemy to arrive. If the pass is weakly held, avoid pursuing the enemy if you have already secured it. When facing an adversary, occupy the elevated and sunny positions while waiting for them to approach. If they have already taken those spots, retreat and try to entice them away. It can be challenging to initiate a battle when you are distant from the enemy and both armies are evenly matched. Understanding these principles is crucial as they relate to the nature of the terrain. Generals in pivotal positions must study these strategies carefully. An army can fall into 6 different disasters, not from natural causes, but due to the general's missteps. These are a retreat, insubordination, collapse, a ruin, disorganization, and routing. If one force confronts another 10 times its size, the smaller force will likely retreat. Insubordination arises when soldiers become overly strong, while the officers remain too weak. Collapse happens when officers are significantly stronger than their soldiers. When higher-ranking officers act out of anger and engage the enemy on their own, without the commander-in-chief assessing the situation, the outcome is often ruinous. Weak general leads to unclear orders, resulting in disorganization when roles aren't clearly defined for officers and troops. If a general misjudges the enemy's strength, allowing a weaker force to clash with a larger one, or fails to place elite troops in the front lines, the result can be a resounding defeat. General holding a responsible position must be mindful of these 6 pitfalls. The natural landscape serves as a soldier's greatest ally. The sign of a great general lies in their ability to gauge the adversary, manage the forces of victory, and accurately assess difficulties, dangers, and distances. Those who comprehend these factors will emerge victorious. Those who do not, or who fail to apply this knowledge, will be defeated, even if the ruler forbids it. One must fight if victory is possible. If a battle won't yield a victory, best to avoid it. A general focused solely on protecting their country and serving well is a true gem for the kingdom. Your soldiers will follow you into the toughest terrains if you treat them like family, standing by you even in the face of death. However, if you cannot establish your authority but are unable to enforce your commands, your soldiers will falter and become ineffective. Understanding your own forces are ready to strike, but not recognizing that the enemy is weak, leaves you only halfway to victory. Conversely, if you realize the enemy is vulnerable, but don't recognize your own troops aren't prepared, you're still only halfway there. If the nature of the terrain makes fighting impractical, but you know the enemy is vulnerable and your men are positioned to attack, victory becomes complicated. Soldiers exhibit confidence once they are mobilized and never hesitate after breaking camp. If you know both the enemy and yourself, victory is almost assured. You can ensure a complete triumph if you also understand the influences of heaven and earth. Chapter 11. Sun Tzu said that the art of war recognizes 9 types of ground. The ground is facile. The ground is contentious. The ground is open. The ground of intersecting highways. There is a serious ground. The ground is difficult. The ground was hemmed in. The ground is desperate. When a leader is fighting in his own territory, it's dispersive. To no great distance, when he has penetrated into hostile territory, it is facile ground. The ground which imports advantage to either side is contentious. The ground on which each side has freedom of movement is open. The key to 3 contiguous states is the ground of intersecting highways, which is where he who occupies it first has most of the empire at his command. It is serious ground when an army has penetrated into the heart of a hostile country and left a number of fortified cities behind it. The country that is hard to traverse is mountain forests, rugged steeps, marshes and fens. This situation is surrounded by terrain accessible only through narrow gorges, making any retreat a complicated affair. Thus, even a few enemies could overpower a large force of our men. Our only way to avoid disaster is to engage in battle without hesitation. Avoid fighting on ground that spreads forces too thin. Stay concentrated in your position. Don't engage on disputed land, and don't attempt to block the enemy's path on open terrain. Instead, when on a crossroads, unite with your allies, and on serious ground, gather your spoils. Keep your army in motion. When trapped in confining terrain, employ clever tactics. Skilled leaders of the past knew how to split the enemy's front from their rear to disrupt their unity. They sought to prevent collaboration between larger and smaller units, as well as hinder strong troops from rescuing the weak. If the enemy is scattered, keep them disordered and take advantage of your opportunities. Seize the initiative when the enemy is unprepared, using unexpected routes to attack vulnerable points. Defenders will struggle to withstand if you penetrate their territory, since your troops will be more united. To keep your army well fed, invade fertile lands. Always monitor your men's well-being. Don't allow your strength to impede your energy. Keep your forces mobile. If you force your soldiers into desperate positions, they'll likely choose death over retreat. When faced with life or death, they'll demonstrate great resilience. Soldiers caught in dire situations often lose their fear and will stand firm without escape routes. In hostile lands, they'll fight fiercely if no reinforcements arrive. When soldiers act without waiting for commands, they become vigilant and highly responsive. They exhibit loyalty without reservation if given the chance. Trust can be built if orders aren't overly strict. Remove any superstitions and dismiss ominous signs. No calamity should be feared until death is imminent. While our soldiers aren't uninterested in money, it isn't because they don't desire wealth, it's because they don't wish to be weighed down by it. They would not oppose long lives if their days weren't too numbered. On the day of battle, soldiers might shed tears, those seated dampening their garments, while others lying down let their tears flow freely. If pressed against a wall, they'll display the valor of great warriors. Tactician, much like the snake in the mountains, can be struck at head or tail. If you attack one end, you'll face retaliation from the other. Adept tactics involve connecting the strength of all parts of an army, similar to how the left hand assists the right in times of need. Relying solely on the tethering of horses and securing chariot wheels is insufficient. Every soldier must aim to meet a universal standard of courage, and a successful general manages their army as if guiding a single person. The general's demeanor should embody calm. Upholding order is a mark of integrity. A skilled leader creates confusion among his troops through deception and misdirection. By altering his plans, he ensures the enemy remains in the dark. He thwarts their ability to anticipate his next move by shifting his camp and taking longer routes. In critical moments, he burns bridges, destroying pathways of retreat. Much like a shepherd leading sheep, he navigates his men with precision and secrecy, guiding them without revealing his ultimate destination. The business of the general is to muster his host and bring it into danger. The different measures are suited to the ground. Aggressive or defensive tactics are the way to go. The fundamental laws of human nature must be studied. The general principle when invading hostile territory is that penetrating deeply brings cohesion. Short way means dispersion. You find yourself on critical ground when you leave your own country and take your army across neighborhood territory. It is serious ground when you penetrate deep into a country. It is easy to penetrate but a little way. It is hemmed in when you have the enemy's strongholds on your rear and narrow passes in front. It is desperate ground when there is no refuge at all. On dispersive ground, one would inspire my men with unity of purpose. There is a close connection between parts of my army, would hurry up my rear, would keep an eye on my defenses. On the ground of intersecting highways, one would consolidate my alliances. One would try to ensure a continuous stream of supplies, would push on along the road. Any way of retreat would be blocked by one unhemmed, in ground. Would tell my soldiers that they were powerless to save their lives. The soldier offers an obstinate resistance when surrounded, to fight hard when he cannot help himself, and to obey promptly when he has fallen into danger. We can't enter into alliance with princes who aren't familiar with their designs. We can't lead an army on the march if we don't know the country's mountains and forests, its pitfalls and precipices, its marshes and swamps. We will not be able to account for natural advantages unless we use local guides. Being ignorant of any of the principles does not make you a warlike prince. The generalship of a warlike prince shows itself when he attacks a powerful state. Allies of his opponents are not allowed to join against him. He doesn't want to ally himself with anyone or foster the power of other states. He keeps his enemies in awe by carrying out his own secret designs. He was able to overthrow their kingdoms, bestow rewards without regard to previous arrangements. As long as you have a single man, you will be able to handle a whole army. Confront your soldiers with a deed. Don't let them know your design. Bring the outlook to their attention when it is bright. When the situation is not good, tell them nothing. If you place your army in danger, it will survive. It will come off in safety if it is plunged into desperate straits. When a force has fallen into harm's way, it is capable of striking a blow for victory. Carefully accommodating ourselves to the enemy is the key to success in warfare. We will succeed in killing the commander-in-chief by hanging on the enemy's flank. The ability to accomplish a thing is called sheer cunning. On the day that you take up your command, block the frontier passes, destroy the official tally, and stop the passage of all emissaries. You may control the situation if you are stern in the council chamber. You must rush in if the door is open. Take what he holds dearest, and time his arrival on the ground. If you want to fight a decisive battle, you have to walk in the path defined by rule, until the enemy gives you an opening. Exhibit the coyness of a maiden. It will be too late to the enemy to oppose you after emulating the rapidity of a hare. Chapter 12. Sun Tzu said, "There are 5 ways of attacking with fire. The first thing to do is burn the soldiers. The second is to burn stores. There are 3 ways to burn baggage, trains. The 4th is to burn magazines. Dropping fire amongst the enemy is the 5th. We need means available in order to carry out an attack. The material for raising fire should always be ready. Special days for starting a conflagration and making attacks with fire are appropriate. The season is when the weather is dry. There are special days when the moon is in the constellation of the sea, the wall, the wing, or the crossbar. There are 4 days of rising wind. When fire breaks out inside the enemy's camp, one should respond with an attack from without. If there is an outbreak of fire, but the enemy's soldiers remain quiet, bide your time and do not attack. When the force of the flames reaches its height, follow it up with an attack. Stay where you are if not. Don't wait for the fire to break out within, but deliver your attack at a good time. You should windward of the fire when you start it. Don't attack from the leeward. Night breeze lasts for a long time in the daytime. Every army has to know the 5 developments connected with fire, the movements of the stars, and a watch for the proper days. Those who use fire show intelligence. Water can be used as an aid to the attack. Water may be used to intercept an enemy, but not his belongings. One who tries to win his battles and succeed in his attacks without cultivating the spirit of enterprise will be unhappy. The result is a waste of time. The ruler lays his plans in advance. The general cultivates his resources. Unless you see an advantage, don't move. Unless there is something to be gained, don't use your troops. Unless the position is critical, don't fight. The ruler should not put troops in the field just to get better. Generals shouldn't fight a battle out of pique. Make a forward move if it is to your advantage. Stay where you are if not. It is possible that anger may change to gladness in time. Content may be used to achieve vexation. Kingdom that has been destroyed can't come back. The dead can't be brought back to life. The good general is full of caution, and the enlightened ruler is heedful. The way to keep an army intact is by keeping a country at peace. Chapter 13. Sun Tzu emphasizes that raising an army of 100,000 men and moving them over long distances can lead to significant loss for the populace and a drain on state resources. The daily cost can reach 1,000 ounces of silver. Exhausted soldiers may collapse on the roads due to unrest both at home and abroad. Furthermore, the livelihoods of 700,000 families may be disrupted during this time. Hostile forces can remain poised against each other for an extended period, yet the outcome of their conflict may hinge on a single day of battle. Ignoring the enemy's state of affairs is a grave error, particularly when the budget for honors and rewards is begrudged. A person who acts without proper understanding cannot be a true leader or a master of victory. What distinguishes a great general from the common soldier is their ability to foresee events. This insight cannot be gained from omens or mere calculations. Rather, it comes from understanding the enemy's movements. Knowledge of the adversary's position can only be obtained through human sources. Among the 5 classifications of spies, local spies play a crucial role. These spies can be transformed into valuable assets, including those who may seem doomed or those who are still alive. However, none of these 5 types can uncover the deepest secrets without a skilled hand guiding them. Local spies leverage the services of residents in the area, creating more intimate relationships than even between officers. It is vital that no one is excessively compensated, and that confidentiality is maintained across all operations. Without sharp insight, utilizing spies effectively becomes impossible. They must be handled with honesty and generosity to be managed well. Clever mind is needed to interpret the truth behind their reports. So be clever. You can deploy your spies in various roles. If a spy reveals information prematurely, they must face dire consequences. It's essential to gather names of the attendants, aides, de camp, doormen, and sentries of any commanding general if you aim to crush an army, storm a city, or eliminate a key figure. This information must be obtained through your spies. The enemy's spies that come to observe us must be identified, lured with bribes and provided safe haven. They can then be reoriented to serve our cause. The intelligence brought in by converted spies allows us to recruit both local and insider informants. We can instruct the doomed spy to spread disinformation since we can rely on their insights. Surviving spies can prove useful in specific situations based on their knowledge. Ultimately, the goal of all 5 types of espionage is to gain insight into the enemy. Initially, this understanding primarily stems from the converted spy, who must be treated generously. The rise of the Yin dynasty was largely due to one Qi, who served under the Xia, while the Chu dynasty's emergence is attributed to Elia, who worked under the Yin. An enlightened ruler and a wise general will harness the best intelligence regarding the army for espionage purposes, leading to significant achievements. Above all, the army's capacity to move effectively remains the most critical factor in warfare.